want to be respectful of our time. Brief intro real quick, and then we'll pass it over. Um, Today, we are very thrilled to have Goran Matijasevic with us. He is probably seen him at events, supporting all around. If you're going to campus events, he's our guru of connections, and he knows everyone. But most importantly, today he's going to help you understand how to know everybody. And he's going to give us his best tips and tricks. And he really is a key figure on campus and just helping maintain alumni connections. And we're really thrilled to have him share his expertise with us today. I'm going to do a quick preview of a follow-up event that we're having after this one. So today you're going to learn tips and tricks on LinkedIn and networking. LinkedIn is going to be a big part. It's a great tool to use to make connections. And so we want your LinkedIn profile to be what it can be. And so on April 1st, Division and Career Pathways is going to host a LinkedIn headshots and profile review session. And so spots are limited for this. And so if you're like, I really need to ramp up my profile and get a new headshot, sign up for this. It is posted in 1220. And that way you can have some one-on-one individualized feedback on your profile. But other than that, I will go ahead and stop sharing. I'll hand it over to you, Goran, and give you the hour.
Mute. Thank you. Apologies, as you would think that I would remember how to unmute. Look forward to giving you some of the tips that I have, and also look forward to connecting with those of you that I'm not connected with. I'm offering to connect with on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me at this. By the way, FYI, if you didn't know, you can rename your LinkedIn address. So in my case, as Goran and Goran M were taken, I ended up with Goran Mat that I use. So if you're trying to kind of have an easier to remember for somebody, a LinkedIn address, that's something that you can do. Just briefly about myself, I got my PhD here at UCI in electrical engineering back in '91. I worked in industry along the way, ended up doing an MBA. That's a whole nother story of how I, almost by accident, decided to do an MBA. In the process, the last company I was with didn't get its next round of funding. I was taking what I thought was a temporary job in the School of Engineering, working on research development. And now 23 years later, I'm still here. 8 of those years were in the School of Engineering, and now I work across UCI. My primary job is this Chief Executive Roundtable that UCI has, connecting the business leaders of the region with our campus. But then I also support our alumni engagement and other kind of connections with the outside world. So that all said, I've been using LinkedIn for a number of years, and I'm going to go over some of the things that I've learned over the years. A lot of what I've learned actually has to do with outreach from the days when I was more formally working with Alumni Association. I'm still supporting their efforts, but it's not a formal relationship in the way. But in any case, so this is kind of the agenda. Let me share first, although you will have a chance to, I guess, improve and work on your LinkedIn. This is an example LinkedIn profile from a UCI alumna who actually works at LinkedIn. So one thing I will point out that she has, quite a robust profile in terms of, showing her various experiences at LinkedIn and how each position led to another position and increased sense of increased responsibility. However, she has one thing wrong that I would urge you to be careful about is you notice that she's not listing, you're not seeing that she's a UCI alumni at the top of the page. You're seeing that she is an alumna of the Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona. Well, that's because she listed that study abroad program that she did as the last education list. So basically, LinkedIn will list your last education item as the one on the top. So be careful as to what you want. You know, if you want to be known for being an alum of a specific institution at the very top, you want to make sure that's at the top of your education, which, by the way, means that you could list your education in a chronological order or a reverse chronological order, meaning the latest degree that you got. So depending on what school you want to kind of like have people immediately see you're an alum of UCI, or you know, if you feel like somebody will get their attention if you did your undergrad at Stanford, then you may want to put that up on top. Again, no disrespect for UCI or Stanford in either case, right? So she lists some volunteering and so on. And by the way, I'm not looking at the chat, so if there's something urgent that Lauren, you can alert me and let me know. Um, sometimes a profile listing can also be a great conversation starter. So here she lists that she took a LinkedIn course on sleep is your superpower, right? So think about what you want to list. And by the way, later I'll show, make sure you list that your involvement with GPS STEM as well. She also lists a whole lot of skills, honors and rewards, and then awards, and then also languages and proficiency and all the other things. So anyway, the main thing I want to show you is this capability that many people that are regular users of LinkedIn don't realize, is that on the desktop, so this is not available on the mobile, but you can, if you're like looking, when I go around showing this to people, I just ask for a desktop site on my browser, log in on my browser as opposed to being on the app, and then I can do the same kind of searching. But this is only available if you are browsing and logged in. And so if you go to the UC Irvine webpage and you click on the button for alumni, you will then see the 189,000. By the way, this number, I don't know how the algorithm works, but sometimes goes up, sometimes goes down a little bit. But in any case, you can see how many alums are of UCI are on LinkedIn. And again, this is self-reported. So that means that someone who put UCI as their education, even if they, we have alums that you will see are from France and Brazil. Some of them fully went to UCI, and others were part of our continuing education, or formerly known as extension programs, and they did some, 6 months here at UCI, or maybe less, or some of them spent a semester abroad at UCI. So just to say, these are not all degreed alums, but for the most part, they are. And then you can look, how many people you know, and ultimately how many people you're connected with. And I need to update this slide because it says 2,200 alums that I know. I actually, I think that number is 2,600 now. So, and by the way, this is not just alums, these are students. So for example, here, there is a PhD student at UC Irvine. So anybody who lists education within the LinkedIn profile. All right, so the next thing is that you can, the first tab is where they work, right? So I can see UC Irvine, Google, Amazon, Apple, and so on. But that is a listing of that is not the actual top 10, if you will. So, for example, TikTok is there, Tesla is there. So these are currently companies that are, kind of sexy, if you will, but it doesn't mean that companies like Northrop Grumman, which when I start typing in under the ad, trying to see how many alumni work at Northrop Grumman, I start typing it in, all of a sudden Northrop Grumman shows up actually above Apple and Microsoft. So be aware that this is not a listing that is the top 10, that you need to start typing in and then click the appropriate from the down menu company that you identify. So, and by the way, if you click to the right, and I'll demonstrate briefly later, you can then not only see where they work and where they live, which is the first two columns, but you can see also what they do. Again, this is self-reported, what they put in the categories, what they're skilled at, what they studied. Again, this is based on LinkedIn categories. So, but you can, search for computer science, or you can search for physics, or you can search for other areas. And then how are you connected to them? So you go through this arrow to get to these additional 4 tabs. All right. But unfortunately, not everybody is on the UCI profile. Mirage has had one for a long time, and I think it's now closer to some 17 or 1,000 plus alumni who are on there. More recently, the School of Engineering has one. It's now close to 1,000 alumni that are on there. Social Ecology has one. School of Law has one. What I urge all of you, if you are, consider for sure double listing. So in other words, I think almost all schools at UCI, not everybody, but now have their own listing, just double list. So what does that mean? Here are some examples. These people just listed the same education twice, exactly the same things. They list, I got my degree at UCI, and I also got it at the Mirage School of Business. So you're not reporting anything out of the ordinary, you're just stating the obvious, right? But you're then searchable under both alumni of UCI and alumni of social ecology. Because otherwise, when I look for you under UCI and you're only listed under social ecology, I will not find you. So strongly recommend double listing. I don't know how to encourage that broadly across all of UCI, but that is my strong recommendation. So something else to now consider. Let's say you're looking for, you're interested in Google, but you're all interested in more specifically people who work at Google who are local to the LA area. And I will point out that some time ago, until about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually had an Orange County designation, but then LinkedIn sadly took it away. It lasted from about 2008 to about 2020, but then they took it away. So we're now lumped in the greater LA area, which sadly means that you don't know whether somebody is in Thousand Oaks or in Riverside or in Orange County. San Diego has its own area, but we are in the greater Los Angeles area. But that said, again, we can look up Google, we can look up LA metropolitan area. We can look up the word manager. So I basically type in under the search, keyword search that you can put in here, the manager, and I can now, as I put these, I'm basically narrowing down the search. By the way, if I do 2 different keyword searches, that is not going to be subtractive, that's going to be additive. So, and if I click 2 different schools or 2 different companies, it will also be additive. I'll show you later in another case. So now if I work manager, that doesn't mean that somebody is a manager. They could be an assistant to the manager, but you can easily find that in fact, some of them are managers. So we have here tech leader manager, senior program manager, and so on. So here's an example of someone who is at Google, who is a first degree connection to me, who is a manager and who is in the LA area. I will say, by the way, that I was just looking up to reconfirm that she is still with Google, and she still is. And sadly, I don't see UCI engagement of her, but she sits on the Chapman Science and Engineering Advisory Board. So opportunity for someone to engage her from UCI. She got her PhD here at UCI, so maybe someone to invite to connect and speak to the students here. All right, so, but the more interesting part is that you can also look up a company. And I can look up a company, and here in this particular case, I'm looking at the company LinkedIn. So I'm looking at LinkedIn as a company, and I am looking at where, so in this case, the first column is not where they work, it's actually where they live. So you can see 25,000 employees, 16,000 in the US, 8,000 in the Bay Area, and then where they studied, and then you have a list. And UCI is not listed in the top 10, but if I type UC Irvine and I click OK, then I see there are 160 employees of UCI who studied at UCI who are at LinkedIn. Again, they could be also um, uh, interns or something like that. Here I'm looking at another company called Capital Group, and to show you why, you and how you can do a search, more complete search through all the UCI to make sure you're covering everybody. So here is, if I look at the Capital Group and actually number one on the list, even by two, is UC Irvine. The second one there is UCLA. And then if I click Mirage School, there is 46 people that pop up. So here they popped up down below. I then click the Donald Brent School of Computer Sciences. There is a couple of people that listed themselves with the Brent School, one person with social ecology, and so on and so forth. So at the end, here are the total number is 292. So we went from 249 to 292. So just be aware, if you're doing a comprehensive search, you can basically do an additive search in this regard by just adding where they studied, and getting a complete number of 292. And then you go to, and by the way, I'll show you this in a moment. You go down the list and you can see all these people that you may be affiliated with, right? So you can see the full 292. I'll demonstrate it live in a moment. Okay, so since we're talking here about GPS STEM and its predecessor GPS Biomed, I was curious how many people have the keywords GPS STEM and GPS Biomed. And so here are some examples. I don't know, there should be a larger number. So I guess maybe not everybody that's in part of the program is listing this as within their LinkedIn. But I found when I again, keyword searched GPS STEM, I found 28. When I keyword searched GPS Biomed, I found 54. Here's a couple of examples. Chelsea, who appears to be in Seattle area. She's not very specific, but says Pacific Northwest here, where she recently went to she was working at AbbVie, and now she's at Eli Lilly. Under licenses and certifications, I cut and paste this, but if you look at the bottom of her LinkedIn profile, and the link is here, I'll share this presentation so you can click yourself. But she is listing GPS STEM industry insights for STEM scientists as a business class she took in 2022. On the other hand, Eric Gold is among the people listed on the GPS Biomed, and he is listed here as a career mentor in the program, peer career mentor when he was in the program. So back in 2016, he graduated with his PhD in 2017. He was at Edwards Life Sciences, then at Verily, and now recently joined Bristol Myers Squibb. So you can then, in the reach out that I'll describe later, so now you have people who actually know your program. When you're reaching out to them, you are reaching out to alumni, former students who actually know what this program is very well, right? Okay, so I will warn you that whether you have a free or even a paid account, but especially if you have a free account and you're doing a lot of searching, then they'll start limiting you on your search usage. That's partly to have you upgrade your account, but it's also starting to think, oh, maybe you're a bot or something. So if you're doing a lot of profile viewing that's not first-degree connections, searching through things, searching outside of your network, then it will start giving you a warning that you're approaching the limit of this. And by the way, I've heard this from some student interns that I've had who reached this when I asked them to do a task, that this resets on the first day of each calendar month. Some other things to know: there are entities that are not supposed to, if you will, be persons. There are some entities that actually connect with people, but LinkedIn doesn't like that and may ban someone from doing that. But otherwise, you can follow a company, but you're not able to, if you will, connect with them. So this is the case, for example, of the UCI Alumni Association. You can follow them, you can message them, but you can't actually be part of them. On the other hand, there are LinkedIn groups. So for example, UCI Alumni is a LinkedIn group, and you can then join them, and then depending on the group management and how it works, you can invite connections to join the group. If there's a moderator or administrator like listed here, and I'm listed as one of the managers, although I don't actively monitor it, other people will then essentially respond and say, okay, you're allowed, you are a true alum, or you are a member of this group. Some other groups here just for you to consider to join. If any of you are engineering or computer science alums, you should join. And by the way, if you say to yourself, I'm not an alum, well, you are. The moment you spent at least 1/4 here at UCI, you're an alum. You're just not a degreed alum yet. So consideration for you. So the group will, these groups will also have events and activities that you may want to join to connect with other alums, and there are also often social occasions. And as we'll talk in the networking part of this presentation, you never know who knows somebody and who may have a contact for you and open your eyes to an opportunity that you never considered. Okay. The sad part is that LinkedIn only allows 5 personalized invites per month for people that don't have a paid account. So in some ways that's strange because you are allowed to invite as many people as you wish, but without a message. But if you want to send a message, then you only have 5 of those messages per month. So use them wisely. By the way, if you want to consider having a paid account, then I think it's still $25 a month for the first level, which is what I am. It has unlimited, so I can always personalize the message. And in fact, it kind of prompts me to do so when I am doing it on the desktop, which is what I usually do. Or I will personalize the invite if I'm doing it from my phone. Now, if you are personalizing it, you can say, what would you want to personalize it with? Well, you can start by saying, I see you work as a manager, maybe our students would love to connect with you, and can you come speak to our group? Or I see you're hiring, maybe you can post your position here or on our Handshake platform. So in other words, you can also be a resource to them. By the way, if you're meeting someone in person, try to connect with them right away. These days, I was just at 2 mixers with students, and nobody was carrying business cards. And so what I recommend is, as you're talking, I was talking to alums or other industry people, is just open up your LinkedIn app, and then on the app, you have the search, and in the search, you have the little QR code in the corner. I don't know if this is visible. Yeah, it looks like it is. And I'll stop sharing for a moment. So by the way, if anybody wants to, you should be able to actually use the app and scan with even your camera on the phone, and it will drive you directly to my LinkedIn profile. So or on the other hand, you can use the scan portion here. There is the my code, and then there is the scan. And you can then reach out to the person right away and say, hey, it was very nice to meet you today, and so on. So, and that way you and they will remember how and when you met. And I'll talk about that more. Um, and even if you don't get a chance to meet someone in person, you come to an event, they're speaking, but you didn't get a chance to actually talk to them. Well, you can send them a LinkedIn after and say, I heard you on the career panel today, and I really appreciate your comments. Thank you for coming to speak to our students. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn, right? And then there is the look at people that LinkedIn suggests. So if you go on your account, you will see all these people that LinkedIn thinks you might know. Now, sometimes it's like, oh, they're just thinking because we both work at, or we both study at UCI, we somehow know each other. And that's not true. Okay. And sometimes it's, oh, these people are also in this field of microbiology. Well, I don't know them, but often they actually do identify people that you do in fact know, and then you realize, oh, I've just never connected with them on LinkedIn. So I recommend, kind of periodically looking at that and seeing, maybe LinkedIn is telling me somebody that I should be connected with, that I've known for a while, but I just forgot that I am not connected on LinkedIn with, right? And then don't forget the people that you know for a long time, your neighbors, your relatives, your high school, your high school friends, your undergrad school friends, and you realize, oh, but you never thought to connect with them on LinkedIn, right? So connect with them because, among other things, they may move away, they may have gone on to different grad schools, and you're not keeping in touch with them as closely as before. LinkedIn will then be your way of reconnecting with them and making sure that you're in touch as they may go to another position somewhere else, right? Okay. Um, So again, if you're trying to use the message on a mobile device, because I have a paid account, instead of clicking connect, I will typically click the three dots and then do when it comes up, when the menu on the right shows up, I will then personalize the invite and say, nice to meet you today at this. And I'll show you why this is important when I want to do that. And again, if you have on the desktop, it will immediately kind of prompt you when you want to personalize the invite. Do you want to personalize it? Do you want to add a note? And you say, yes, I will want to add a note. And I just showed you how to do these three, the LinkedIn QR code. All right, last is on LinkedIn before I go into the networking part of this presentation is, again, urge you to post professional activity and any photos that are related to professional related things. I'm not a big fan of other networks, social media networks. I don't really post or connect much on those. And then, uh, you know, uh, but check to see to wish people happy birthday. I wish happy birthday to people that I know better, that those that wish that have, for example, their birthday listed. And sadly, there are more and more fake profiles out there. So be aware that some of them are obvious. This is Bruce Drysdale. Doesn't look like Bruce to me. So be careful about that. I've run into cases where someone who took over a person that I knew changed the profile picture. So then I was a little confused. Do I know this person? How do I know this person? It took me a moment to figure out as they started messaging me, and I realized, okay, they're spamming and they're trying to troll me. In another case, they completely changed the name and everything, and they were connected with me. And then I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I connected to this person that has no relevance to me? And then I figured out that they basically overhauled the complete profile and kept all the connections. So be aware that that also is out there. All right. So before I go further on this, um, Okay, I don't see anything in the chat. I will want to share just briefly a couple of things live here on the. So this was when I was doing the GPS STEM search. Um, and so, and then here is where I found our alumna who works at Eli Lilly. So again, just to demonstrate, um, if I open this link that's another thing is that in all of these searches, so for example, here, when I'm doing a search, I generally say, don't just, like go from the search, but rather right click, open the link in a new tab. That way you're not having to do the search over and over again. And now I'm looking at the various profiles here. So let me look at the other one. So basically just opening these in the right-hand click open to a new page, and then I can check out the profile of the person. And then if going back the opposite way, as I said, AbbVie. So if I have people, so these are AbbVie. So now we want to type in Irvine. So we have 256. So I mentioned earlier that Mirage is separates. So now I added Mirage, it's 289. Now let me check to see whether there is any computer science that are separately listed. Turns out no, it's the same number. But in any case, you're seeing what I'm talking about. And again, if I scrolling, it will just show me all 289. And then you can see, okay, which one speaks to you? Which of these people is in a position, has a degree? And as I said, it's additive when I'm doing this, but if I, for example, put PhD and I want to see who at AbbVie has the PhD somewhere in their profile, doesn't mean that they're a PhD, but maybe just have the words PhD somewhere. Here are the people who have PhD in their profile and who are at AbbVie. And now you can figure out, okay, I want to talk to this person. Let me reach out to them. Going back to the oh yeah, I want to highlighted this other gentleman here that I met, and I was actually thinking, okay, how did I meet him? Well, so there's two ways. One is under contact info, you will see the date that you connected with somebody, right? So it will tell you, the contact info will tell you exactly the date that you connected. That may not be the date that you reached out to them. It will be the date that they accepted the invite, and vice versa. If they invited you when you accepted that invite, that will be the date that you connected. So then I sometimes go on my calendar and say, okay, well, I met them there, where did I meet him and so on. I haven't talked to him in a while. Well, if I did that intro message, then that intro message that I had in September 2019, where I said, good to meet you this evening at the Medicine Distinguished Lecture, look forward to staying in touch. So that tells me exactly when and where we met, right? So even if you met someone and you think, okay, you'll remember them, but 5 years passes or more, and then you're like not sure how you met them. So this is a kind of a way to immediately both have the date, but also have the context of how you met them. Right? So again, not something that I was doing from initially when I first was on LinkedIn back in 2008, but something that I started doing, about 7 years ago, and that now is very useful. All right, I'm going to go back to the, oh, sorry, I don't think I'm sharing. Okay, the importance of building relationships. So trust relationships are basis of everything in life, right? So basis of business deals, of research collaborations. If you look at papers and you see that author is from one university and then there's an author from another university, it's often a relationship that dates back to these people being a mentor-mentee, or they both work together in a lab, or they may have met at a conference, but over time they had to build a trust relationship that results in this activity, right? It's not something that comes about right away, right? So who are the sources of your trust relationships? Obviously, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, anybody that you see on a regular basis, anybody that you keep in touch with on a regular basis. So those are all opportunities also for jobs and job leads, if you will. And you never know who has those. So you want to keep connections with people, whether it's a phone conversation, an occasional email or text, coffee or lunch, invitation to join you at an event. You have an extra ticket, you know about an event, and you say, okay, well, I think my friend might enjoy this. Let me see if I can get an extra ticket. I always like to if I'm going to LA for something, or Pasadena, I'm involved with the Caltech Entrepreneurs Forum. And so if I'm driving Saturday morning all the way up to Pasadena, it's nice to have someone to chat with along the way on the car. I've taken before, when I used to teach an entrepreneurship class, a number of times I've taken students up to Pasadena for that event, and had a chance to connect and catch up on the way up or on the way down, right? So um, LinkedIn updates, obviously, when you see someone that updated something, then shoot them a quick, hey, I see, congratulations on your new role, or congratulations, and so on. Again, I'm not a fan for Facebook or Instagram for professional, but for close friends and family, yes. And then ultimately a thank you note, whatever it is, thank you for coming and speaking to our students. We really appreciate your effort, and so on and so forth. Where to find new connections? Professional societies. So every science discipline has one. In the engineering area, IEEE is huge. ACS, mechanical engineering, of course, locally here, the engineering, this is for undergrads, Engineering Student Council, AGS in terms of grad student involvement. That was one of the things I was very involved with when I was a student. Involvement with your school committees. There are, I don't know if you know, but almost every kind of committee, curriculum, others. I served on some of those when I was a student years ago in the 80s. They're looking for a grad student to be a representative on these. UCI meetings and events. Most seminars and things, or even like center events, are free with an RSVP. For grad students, also a side benefit, free food. Alumni groups, again, I mentioned earlier the engineering alumni chapter, others as well. And then the other ones I already mentioned. So, by the way, I lead a monthly walk. Sorry, next one is not February 8th. It's actually this Saturday, March 1st. So next walk is on, and also this Saturday is UCI homecoming, and it's free to all students. So all you got to do is show up at 2 o'clock in the park. It'll be a giant, basically, fair from 2 to 6. So for any part of it, if you're available, mix and mingle with the alumni that will be there. So and then, as I said, I lead this walk on a Saturday. I'll update this slide. March 1st is the next one, then April 5th, and then May 3rd. I will send that info to you. And then build new connections where I always wear my UCI pin. I'm here on the right. That photo is me in San Antonio. I'm attending a conference, and I'm walking with the pin of UCI, and these two alumni and staff/students at UCI saw my pin and said, "Oh, we're from UCI." They were attending a completely different conference. We were casually walking on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and we've now connected. And by the way, now they have also come back and given back by being judges in the research symposium for the undergrads at UCI, and so on. So you never know where connections are. So be out there wearing your UCI gear or your other things. You don't know where you're going to run into people. identify lectures, trade shows. So just recently, the Medical Device and Manufacturing Show was in Anaheim. That's every year, MDM West. I decided very impromptu. Somebody else alerted me that they were going to be there, and I go, okay, well, let me sign up. I was signing up late, so normally it would have cost money. Usually these trade shows are free. But if you Google around online, you can usually find an exhibitor that is offering a free registration. And again, they're usually free if you plan ahead. So I attended the event, and it was great. I just, again, randomly ran into alums. One of them recognized me as I was walking. Another one was walking the floor as well. He actually works in a building right in the UCI Research Park. We never see each other here, and yet we randomly saw each other at the MDN show. So again, be out there because you never know where the contacts are. And then seek out to the alums and say, hey, would you be willing to be an occasional mentor, meet with me, for over Zoom or over coffee or whatever. And again, you're doing this all before you need these relationships, right? And you're thinking, well, what can I offer them? Well, you offer them insight into UCI. They may not know how to reach students at UCI. So I always say also, if a friend offers you to give help on something, make sure you take him up on that offer, because that builds the relationship. So do that as well. And then, of course, don't forget to, and don't be afraid to ask for help yourself. So what networking is not is showing up, oh, I have just graduated and I need a job. Can you help me find a job? That's not, or I mean, by the way, the same thing goes for donation. The typical thing that fundraising professionals know is that you ask people for money and they'll give you advice. But if you ask people for advice, you build a relationship. Ultimately, they might give you money if they have some. So start by building that relationship first. So networking tips, dress for the occasion, err on the dressier side. So that depends on what field you're in and what area it is. Computer science folks dress more casually. Business people are dressed in, usually in a suit and tie. I always err on dressing more formally, because I never know where my meetings might take me during the day. So that said, when I see nobody in the room has a tie, I may, throw away my tie from that. Show up early to events. First of all, see if you can get to know the organizers. You could potentially meet the speaker of the event before everybody is after them. Now, be respectful, because they may be busy talking with the organizer about the AV arrangements and things like that. But that said, I have often met the speaker and had a chance to talk to them before everybody heard them speak, and then mobbed them afterwards. And so it's because if they arrived early and took care of all what they needed to do, they're usually just twiddling their thumbs and standing there, whereas the organizers are busy with greeting everybody. And a lot of people will not recognize who the speaker is, that they're just standing there. So I have actually often, sometimes by chance, even gotten to know the speaker before they actually got up there. Recently, there was an event at UCI, and I ended up speaking with someone, and I didn't even realize that they were the lunch keynote. And we had a nice conversation, and then they got up there, and then everybody was after them afterwards. So again, the other advantage of showing up early, if they don't have the badges hidden from you so that they're facing them, is to see who is coming. And for me, that sometimes is also like, oh, I need to remember that I know this person, or so on. That serves as a memory jog as well. I have also asked, when I really want to meet a specific person, I've asked the registration people, can you please point out this person? I don't know what they look like. I'd love to. And if you're able to, I'd love for an introduction, or at least point out them to me. So, okay. So the other thing is conversation. Listen. There's a reason why we have 2 ears and one mouth. Ask the other people what they do. Do they come to the meeting often? Is this their first meeting? Be personable. Find something you can share. Identify something, if they're saying, oh, we're hiring a lot of people, but I have a hard time getting to how do I get in front of students? Well, let me see if I can find some student clubs that you can come and speak to, right? So if appropriate, then give your elevator pitch, whatever that your elevator pitch is, right? So what are you doing? What are you looking for? Why did you specifically come to this meeting? By the way, some organizations do this structured networking. If you ever want to do structured networking, one of the suggestions is to have the last bit be something memorable about yourself so that people will remember you kind of like, oh, okay, this was the person that, for example, I will share, had a horse at UCI when I was a grad student. So now you will remember forever that while I was a grad student, I had a horse at UCI. And you will wonder, how did that happen? That's another whole story. So contact is good. Follow-up is better. Most people are too busy and do not have a chance to follow up. So the more you do that follow-up, that quick note, the more you will stand out compared to other people. And if you don't get a chance to follow up right away, try to be politeful and polite and remind people later when you follow up how exactly you met them or so on. Because frankly, again, I've had people who said, "Oh, we met." Okay, you got to give me more context because I meet a lot of people. So if you can tell me, oh, we met at this event, then I will always respond. Thank you very much for jogging my memory. I appreciate it very much.